Regulation G, which is Title 12, Chapter 10, Part 1007, implements the SAFE Act's federal registration requirement for MLOs. The SAFE Act provides that the objectives of this registration include aggregating and improving the flow of information to and between regulators, providing increased accountability and tracking of mortgage loan originators, enhancing consumer protections, supporting anti-fraud measures, and providing consumers with easily accessible information at no charge regarding the employment history of and publicly adjudicated disciplinary and enforcement actions against mortgage loan originators. Regulation G covers many of the topics we have already covered under Title V. However, some are covered in greater detail. We would like to discuss the policy and procedures requirement under Regulation G. A covered financial institution that employs one or more mortgage loan originators must adopt and follow written policies and procedures designed to assure compliance with this part. These policies and procedures must be appropriate to the nature, size, complexity, and scope of the mortgage lending activities of the covered financial institution and apply only to those employees acting within the scope of their employment at the covered financial institution. At a minimum, these policies and procedures must establish a process for identifying which employees of the covered financial institution are required to be registered as mortgage loan originators. The policies must require that all employees of the covered financial institution who are mortgage loan originators be informed of the registration requirements of the SAFE Act in this part and be instructed on how to comply with such requirements and procedures. The policies must also establish procedures to comply with the unique identifier requirement, establish reasonable procedures for confirming the adequacy and accuracy of employee registrations, including updates and renewals by comparisons with its own records. The policies must also establish reasonable procedures and tracking systems for monitoring compliance with registration and renewal requirements and procedures. The policies must also provide for independent testing for compliance with this part to be conducted at least annually by covered financial institution personnel or by an outside party. The policy must provide for appropriate action in the case of any employee who fails to comply with the registration requirements of the SAFE Act, this part, or the covered financial institution's related policies and procedures, including prohibiting such employees from acting as MLOs or other appropriate disciplinary actions. The policy must also establish a process for reviewing employee criminal history background reports received pursuant to this part, taking appropriate action consistent with applicable federal law and implementing regulations with respect to these reports, and maintaining records of these reports and actions taken with respect to applicable employees, and establish procedures designed to ensure that any third party with which the covered financial institution has arrangements related to mortgage loan origination has policies and procedures to comply with the SAFE Act, including appropriate licensing and/or registration of individuals acting as mortgage loan originators.